Welcome to Basic Flight, Systems, and Combat Training. This series of training sessions will provide you with detailed instructions on how to control your spacecraft, manage ship systems, navigate, build, trade, mine, and use weapon systems. You can skip most training stages by pressing Enter. You can also return to a previous training stage by pressing Alt-Enter. Some stages may require an action on your part before continuing. For this first session, we'll cover flight basics. The default flight control will be set to the mouse if no joystick or gamepad is detected. You can change the control setup as desired in the options menu. For mouse flight control, you can select either a point mode or a direction mode. The point mode will let you control your ship using a visual marker on the screen. The direction mode will let you control your ship based on how much you move the mouse. We'll start with velocity control. If you're using the mouse for flight control, you can use the wheel to adjust the velocity setting, or the default 1 to 0 keys to set it by percentage. The default plus and minus, or W and S keys, can also be used to trim the velocity setting. You'll notice the SET indicator will reflect whatever level of velocity you select, while the FVL indicator will display your ship's actual forward velocity level. Increase the forward velocity setting to maximum now, and observe how the ship's computer will apply forward thrust until the FVL value matches the selected SET value. Good. Now reduce your forward velocity setting to 0. If you're using either the mouse or keyboard flight control mode, you can hit the backspace key to immediately set velocity to 0. In addition to setting a desired velocity level in the positive range, the flight control system also includes the ability to select a negative velocity level. The plus indicator on the ship's status display will change to the letter R to indicate that the full range of velocity control has been enabled. Activate the full positive and negative range of available velocity control now by pressing the default right shift key. With the full range mode enabled, the middle SET level will be 0 velocity, while lower levels will be negative and higher levels will be positive. The trim controls will let you select SET levels in either the positive or negative range. You can disable the full range velocity control mode now if you want to by pressing the right shift key a second time. In addition to your main engines, your ship also has a series of thrusters at various points on the hull. These thrusters are automatically controlled by your onboard computer to help keep your ship moving in the direction it is facing, but you also manually control the thrusters to rotate your ship and perform maneuvers. Use the current flight control device to yaw left and right now. Next, pitch up and down. Good. The last rotation control is roll. For keyboard and mouse flight control modes, use the default Q and E keys for rolling left and right. Roll left and right now. In addition to rotation and velocity control, you can also move your ship directly left, right, up, or down by activating the horizontal or vertical movement thrusters. On and off control for these thrusters is available using the default A and D keys for left and right horizontal movement, while the Z and X keys are used for up and down vertical movement. You can also add variable horizontal and vertical thruster control if the flight control device you're using supports enough access channels. Try moving horizontally left and right now. The longer you activate a thruster, the faster you will fly in the opposite direction. When you disengage a thruster, your ship's computer will automatically apply counter thrusters to realign its course with the direction the nose of your ship is facing. Now try moving up and down using the vertical thruster controls. Again, the default key controls for up and down vertical thrusters are Z and X. Well done. Flying in space involves mastering the effects of inertia. The Inertial Dampening System, or IDS, will help keep flight control simple by constantly using your thrusters automatically to keep your ship moving in the direction it's facing. The more momentum your ship has in a particular direction, the longer it will take for the IDS to alter your ship's movement toward a new heading. When you want to bypass the system and allow your ship to continue moving in a certain direction, press the IDS on-off key, default spacebar. The inertial label will be visible on your ship's status display when the IDS is off. Practice by building up speed in the direction you're facing, then turn off the IDS and rotate around a bit to see how inertia will let you continue moving in the original direction. Turn the IDS back on to resume automatic thruster control. The IDS also supports adjustable throttle scaling. There are 9 levels you can select, and the current level is displayed at the right of the IDS indicator on the lower left cockpit display. X1 is the default level and provides the lowest level of throttle input range that is good for situations that can require rapid course changes, such as combat and docking. X9 is the highest and provides the widest range of throttle input, but it can take much longer for your ship to adjust course at higher speed settings. Try increasing the IDS scale value now, using the default numpad 9 key, then change the throttle SET velocity level to see how the scale level impacts the input range. Return the IDS scale value to 1 when you are finished, using the default numpad 7 key. Your ship is also equipped with an afterburner, which provides a high level of thrust from the main engines. Use it sparingly as it consumes a much greater amount of fuel, but it can be very useful in combat when you need to escape or change direction quickly. To engage the afterburner, press and hold the default tab key. Practice using the afterburner now by accelerating to twice your ship's maximum cruise speed, then release the key to disable the afterburner. That completes the basic flight control training section. The next section will cover cockpit displays and HUD heads-up display systems next. Combat, environment, and status information is projected onto your helmet's visor as a heads-up display, and on the 3 cockpit displays. In its default full mode, referred to as Mode 2, the HUD includes readouts for gravity, altitude, weapon energy, hull damage, and speed around the gun sight in the middle. HUD Mode 2 also includes motion ladders to help provide a sense of relative movement, along with a pitch ladder to indicate the orientation of your ship. Weapon firing mode and IDS status indicators are also displayed above the gun sight. The HUD can be turned off entirely, or use a reduced display mode, referred to as Mode 1, that removes the indicators around the gun sight, as well as the motion ladders and pitch ladder. Try cycling through the HUD modes now, using the default H key. Return to HUD Mode 2 when finished. In Mode 2, velocity information is displayed at 5 locations around the rim of the gun sight, in the middle of the heads-up display. At the lower right of the gun sight are the FVL and SET velocity indicators. As explained in the basic flight control section, FVL indicates the forward velocity level of your ship, while SET indicates the set level of forward velocity you've selected for your ship to fly at. Directly above the FVL and SET indicators, in the middle right of the gun sight, is the HVL indicator, which stands for horizontal velocity level. It provides the speed your ship is traveling at horizontally, relative to its current orientation. Likewise, the VVL indicator on the opposite side of the gun sight provides the vertical speed your ship is traveling at. At the bottom of the gun sight is the AVL indicator, which stands for absolute velocity level. This velocity indicator will provide the total speed your ship is traveling at, regardless of direction. In the upper left corner, GVL stands for gravity velocity level. It indicates the combined effect gravity is having on your spacecraft by providing the level of velocity your ship is being pulled at by the nearest gravitational force. It is not a force factor gauge, but instead displays the overall velocity offset level gravity is imparting on your ship. The closer you are to an object applying gravity to your ship, and/or the more powerful the gravitational pull, the higher this velocity indicator will read. The IDS will attempt to stabilize any velocity factors relative to the direction your ship is traveling, while also accounting for any gravity offset. This allows your ship to maintain a consistent velocity relative to an object's pull on it. If you turn off the IDS, the computer will stop compensating, and gravity will be allowed to accelerate your ship unrestricted in the direction it is being pulled. It's important to learn to watch these velocity indicators, as they will help you keep track of what direction your ship is traveling at, as well as how fast. Such information is critical when performing maneuvers for combat, navigating obstacles in space, and while performing docking maneuvers. The upper right corner of the gun sight indicates the current altitude of your ship relative to the nearest planet or moon. The indicator won't activate until you are fairly close to such an object. The lower left corner of the gun sight provides indicators for weapon energy status and hull damage level in percentages. At the top of the gun sight are indicators for the weapon firing mode, IDS status, MDTS, and heat signature, which will be reviewed later in the Combat Weapons System section. There is one quick detail to point out in this section for the IDS mode indicator here. It will display the IDS scale value when the system is on, or INERT when the system is off, and your ship is drifting in inertial mode. The pitch ladder is displayed on each side of the gun sight and indicates the nose angle of your ship relative to the galactic ecliptic constant. Knowing the angle of your ship's nose can be useful when navigating to or from an object in space that is above or below your position. The HUD also provides a flight path marker, or FPM, that indicates the actual flight path of your ship relative to the direction its nose is facing. The FPM will not be aligned with the center of the gun sight when your ship's course is offset from the direction it's facing due to gravity or drifting. This can be a useful gauge to watch when trying to align your ship's course down a particular pathway for docking or when navigating obstacles. The FPM is available in both HUD Mode 1 and 2. The top part of the HUD includes the compass, flight timer, control thruster indicators, and several menu options. The compass indicates the heading of your ship relative to the galactic ecliptic constant, the same way the pitch ladder is calibrated. The compass is useful when determining a course to an object in space as well as when docking. Space station hangars are always aligned with the galactic ecliptic for easier docking navigation. The control and thruster indicators display your ship's flight controller input status and thruster activity. Each indicator panel has a series of bars to display the level of input for control or the level of output for thrusters. They also provide a top view profile and a side view profile for visual reference. The top view is displayed in white, while the side view is displayed in blue. The top view indicates yaw and forward-reverse levels, while the side view indicates pitch and vertical levels. It may take some time to familiarize yourself with these indicators, but they can be useful in providing a quick overview of what your ship is reacting to and how. Menu options are on each side of the control and thruster indicators. To select a menu option, simply use the mouse pointer and click on the desired button. If you're using the mouse for flight control, you can hold down the Alt key to suspend flight control so you can move the pointer to select one of the menu options. You can also optionally press both Alt keys to toggle locking the flight control mode on or off. On the far left of the menu panel is the target menu. Go ahead and open the target menu now. The target menu lets you select a target or change the 3D radar's targeting modes. These options are also available with key or button controls, but this menu is available for a mouse click option as well. The top 4 options let you select a ship target. The bottom 3 are for radar options. Radar hostiles will toggle the hostile only mode for the radar. Radar range will toggle through the available range settings. Radar mode will toggle between the 3D and 2D display modes. Click on the target menu button again to close the menu when you are finished viewing it. On the far right of the menu panel is the Fleet Options menu. Go ahead and open the Fleet Options menu now. The Fleet Options menu lets you send an order to other ships in your fleet. In single player, the order is given to computer-controlled ships that you have recruited to be part of your fleet. In multiplayer, the order is sent to players who are part of the same faction you are allied with. In single player, additional fleet selection and display options are also available. You can select a specific ship to issue an order to, or send an order to your entire fleet. You can also review the shield and damage status of each ship in your fleet, or review the order each ship is currently following. Click on the Fleet Options button again to close the menu when you are finished viewing it. Other options along the top of the HUD give you access to the console's autopilot and formation options. The formation option on the right side of the compass will keep your ship in close formation with any friendly or moderate ship you have targeted. The other options will be covered in later training sections specific to their topic categories. Next, we'll review the 3 main cockpit displays. The lower left cockpit display shows details on the status of your ship. On the top left are the 6 velocity gauges that are also available around the gun sight in HUD Mode 2. The gun sight readouts are useful for combat situations when you don't want to have to look away from the action for very long. When using HUD Mode 1 though, these readouts are still available in this status display. Below the velocity indicators on the left side of the status display are readouts for altitude, IDS mode, fuel, countermeasures, CM, and damage levels for navigation, weapon, and engine subsystems. At the top right of the status display is the current energy setting indicator. Your ship divides available energy between your weapon system and shield system. The current energy setting is shown next to the letters PWR. The setting will range from a value of -5 to +5. The Combat Weapons System section will cover how to use this option later. The WPN indicator displays the current energy charge status of your primary weapon system. The HUL indicator displays the current damage status of your ship's hull. The secondary list displays any secondary weapons or items you have installed, and the weapon or item that is currently armed and ready is at the top of the list in the number 1 slot. The shield display provides the status of your ship's shield arrays. Directly below the shield displays the current weapon firing mode indicator. The middle cockpit displays your 3D radar. It provides direction and range information on certain objects in space. Green dots indicate friendly ships, yellow dots indicate moderate ships, and red dots indicate hostile ships. When red dots appear on the radar, a warning sound will help bring the threat to your attention. Blue dots indicate stations. Red dots with small brackets indicate inbound missiles. White dots indicate cargo, and purple dots indicate unknown or miscellaneous objects. The radar offers 2 primary display modes, 3D and 2D. When in 3D mode, the letters DIR will appear in the mode indicator at the lower right of the radar display. When in 2D mode, the letters DIS will appear in the mode indicator. The 3D mode is primarily for direction information, while the 2D mode is primarily for distance information. You can toggle between the modes using the default numpad plus key. Observe both modes now by switching between each of them, then return to the default 3D DIR mode. The 3D mode displays radar contacts from behind and above your ship's position, using a spherical layout to provide directional reference information. The blue highlight brackets in the middle at the front of the 3D radar's spherical frame indicate the forward direction of your ship, so you can fly toward an object by bringing its corresponding dot into these brackets. An object's range is displayed by the number of lines surrounding its dot. No lines indicate a distant object. 1 set of lines indicate a medium-range object, while 2 sets of lines indicate a close-range object. The radar's 2D mode displays radar contacts from an overhead perspective. It's best used when your ship is flying relatively level and provides more specific range information on various objects in the area versus the 3D radar mode. You can filter out radar contacts by range in either mode for a less cluttered view in crowded space, or to prioritize close-range targets only. Ranges are available in 5K intervals, spanning 5K to 25K. Observe the various range modes now by toggling through each of them using the default numpad dot key, then return to the 25K range mode when you are finished. You can also limit the contacts displayed on the radar with the hostile mode. When enabled using the default numpad minus key, only hostile ships in range will be displayed on the radar. The total hostile contacts, THC, mode, and range indicators will change color to red when in hostile mode. The range to the current selected nav point is shown in the upper left corner of the radar display, above NAV. The display at the lower right of the cockpit shows details about the ship you are currently targeting. It can also display a list of ships in range, or be turned off entirely to avoid accidentally targeting a friendly ship in the area. To toggle the different display modes, press the default G key now. When finished, return the display to the target detail mode. When you have a ship targeted, its class, ID, faction affiliation, threat level, THR, forward speed, FBL, range, RNG, shield levels, direction, and hull damage will be shown on the display. If you've installed a cargo scanning device on your ship, you'll also see what's in the targeted ship's cargo bay once you're in range. That concludes this training section on the cockpit displays and HUD. This section will cover the basics of space station docking. Space stations align their entrances, also referred to as gates, in a fixed pattern aligned with the galactic ecliptic. So to approach a hangar entrance, you want to line up with one of the docking angles and keep pitch at 0. Hangar entrance 1 uses heading 180. Entrance 2 uses 252. Entrance 3 uses 324. Entrance 4 uses 36. And entrance 5 uses 108. Cyan-colored markers are displayed on the compass tape at the top of the HUD to help guide you on the available docking angles. Docking is largely self-regulated, and other pilots will generally announce their arrivals and departures. The station's dockmaster will also often inform you if the hangar entrance you are currently closest to is clear or has traffic. Once you are in range of the hangar, docking lights and an ILS guide will appear. The ILS guide will be red when your approach angle is not lined up with one of the entrances, and will be green when your approach angle is correct. When docking, pick one of the entrances and fly into it using the flashing docking lights as a virtual runway guide into the hangar entrance. Generally, stations are built away from obstacles and environmental factors, but on occasion, you may need to account for any conditions such as gravity or objects obscuring a docking path. You will now be placed at a location near the local station to practice docking. Go ahead and practice docking with this station. Again, select an entrance and approach from a distance, then line up with it using the compass and pitch ladder as needed. Watch for other ships and keep your speed around 1,000 or less to keep course corrections manageable. Once you've entered an entrance, fly toward the center of the hangar that is indicated by the docking area label. Once you are close enough, the station's tractor beam will lock your ship in place and automatically open the inventory console. You'll pass through the low-powered shield band when you enter or exit a station. While not a weapon shield, it does protect the sensitive internal structure of the station from micrometeors, scan ships as they pass through, and can be used as a visual marker for the middle region of the hangar.
Docking tractor beam engaged.
Once docked, reduce set velocity to 0, or turn off the IDS to avoid wasting fuel. Otherwise, your engines will fight against the pull of the tractor beam and unnecessarily burn fuel. Also, make sure to avoid accidentally firing weapons. At this point, you can begin trade activities, search for available contracts, repair or refuel your ship, look for crew members, rearrange ship loadouts, or enter the station for shelter and more options. To depart, simply close the inventory console, default F3 key, and fly out through one of the available gates. Go ahead and depart the station now.
Docking tractor beam disengaged.
That concludes this training section on space station docking. The next training section will cover planet descents and city docking. This section will cover descending to the surface of the planet and docking with a city. First, here are some important points to remember. When approaching a planet, make sure to keep your speed at around 3,000 or less to avoid excessive friction that risks depleting your ship's shields and eventually damaging its hull. You can also boost energy to your shield system and augment energy to the forward shield array as needed to perform a high-speed descent. Atmospheric density increases as you descend, so if you need to make an emergency descent, you can fly at high speed while at high altitude and reduce your speed to safer levels as the atmosphere becomes thicker at lower altitudes. But generally, you want to keep your speed in a safer range on regular descents. The flight characteristics of your spacecraft will change dramatically as you enter a planet's atmosphere. As you descend from the vacuum of space into an atmosphere, your ship's wings will become a factor in the physics of flight. They will generate some lift, which will help keep your spacecraft in the air as long as it flies forward at a high enough velocity. Fly too slowly, and your ship will generally stall and fall nose down toward the terrain. Modern spacecraft do not perform in atmospheric flight as traditional aircraft did in the past. They do not use ailerons, elevators, rudders, or flaps. Instead, they rely exclusively on their thruster systems to perform roll, pitch, and yaw access maneuvers. While their thruster systems are very powerful, a spacecraft still needs to fly forward in an atmosphere in order to generate enough lift and perform maneuvers. So always remember to keep your ship's velocity at a minimum of around 250 to achieve this objective. When a spacecraft is confined to the physical restrictions of an atmosphere, the attributes of its mass, aerodynamic shape, and engine performance can be pronounced. Heavier ships can be significantly more difficult to maneuver and be slower than their lighter weight counterparts. So it's important to consider these factors when designing a ship for the role you want to play. Your ship will now be placed near the local planet and at an angle approaching the main trade city on the surface. Descend into the atmosphere and dock at the city's docking port. City docking ports are usually placed near the middle of building structures. While descending, you may want to practice maneuvering your ship around through some turns at different speeds to get a feel for how its flight characteristics change as the atmosphere becomes thicker. When you're ready, approach the city and fly to the docking port. As with space station docking, an ILS marker will appear to help guide you to the nearest city. It will generally keep you at a higher altitude, well above terrain features, until you get close enough to the city for a direct descent approach. As you descend, you may notice that your ship's flight path marker begins to drift away from the direction its nose is facing. Even though your ship is pointed in one direction, the FPM indicates a slight amount of off-center drift. This is normal and is due to the fact that the planet will begin to carry you along with its rotation, causing your ship to drift relative to the galactic constant. Your ship's computer will continue to calibrate velocity to the SET level you specify, regardless of the amount of drift being imparted to your ship by the planet's rotation. So when you set velocity to 2000, the computer will apply enough engine power to achieve that speed, relative to how your ship is now being carried along by gravity and the planet's rotation. This also means that your indicated AVL velocity will likely differ at various angles, since it is calibrated to the galactic constant as well. This way, you can quickly gauge what kind of effects such environmental factors are having on your ship's performance and position. As you approach the city, watch out for obstacles that may block your path to the docking port. Ships arriving or departing, terrain features, and even city buildings can all be factors you may have to contend with during a descent to a city. Descents that are close to direct drops from space can be the most efficient, if not scenic, routes to take. Once you've docked, make sure to set velocity to 0 or turn off the IDS to avoid wasting fuel.
Docking tractor beam engaged.
Nicely done. City docking ports work much like space station hangars. Although they don't have storage hangars like space stations, they still offer engineering lab, weapon lab, and shipyard capabilities. Some trade benefits can also apply at cities. That concludes this training section on planet descents and city docking. The next training sections will cover the navigation, build, inventory, and trade consoles. This section will review the available consoles. To open the navigation console, click on the nav icon at the top of the heads-up display, or press the default F1 key. Again, if you are using the mouse for flight control, you can temporarily suspend flight control to click on HUD menu options by holding the Alt key down. Open the navigation console now. This console lets you manage open space navigation and jump drive travel with a versatile interface. In the middle of the console menu is the nav map itself. The map displays the sector you are currently in, along with local object details. Your current position is displayed on the map with a green arrow. The map system divides 3D space into cubes, called sectors. A coordinate system is used to pinpoint a location within each sector. In-sector coordinates range from -100,000 to +100,000 from one side of the sector to the other on the X, Y, and Z axis. In the default top view map mode, the X coordinate direction runs left to right on the map, and Z runs up and down. The central point on the map represents the center of the sector, which is located at X0 and Z0. You can also optionally view the sector from behind. Click on the rear view button now to flip the map to view the current sector from behind. In this view mode, up and down on the map represents the Y coordinate direction, indicating the elevation of objects in range within the sector. Your ship's position is indicated by a green dot, so you can quickly gauge if an object is above or below your position by comparing its icon with the marker for your ship. Click on Top View now to return the map to its default orientation. The current navigation point is displayed on the nav map with the yellow X symbol. To select a new navigation point, simply left-click on the location you want. In Top View, selecting a nav point on the map will set the X and Z coordinates, while in Rear View, selecting a point on the map will set the X and Y coordinates. Practice using the navigation console by clicking on a point located near X40,000, Z40,000 in the current top view mode. When you left-click on the nav map in top view mode to set the X and Z coordinates, you can later adjust the Y coordinate or elevation by either using the rear view map mode or by clicking on the Y coordinate value located under the destination position heading and manually typing in a value. Using either option, set the Y coordinate value to 40,000 now. The distance to the selected nav point is displayed at the bottom of the destination position section of the console. To the left of the distance are the range specifications of your ship's installed jump drive. The navigation system is linked to your ship's jump drive, so any navigation point you select can quickly be reached if it's in range. You can activate the jump drive to reach the nav point with either the default F8 key or by clicking on the launch button in the navigation console. If your jump drive can reach a distant point you select in a different sector, you'll be able to quickly jump there. If the distance is beyond what your jump drive can travel to in one jump, the autopilot can engage the jump drive repeatedly until you reach the destination. You can upgrade your fulcrum drive to travel to sectors that are farther away in fewer jumps. Sectors themselves have their own dedicated coordinate system. Coordinates for sectors are designated with the SX, SY, and SZ letters. You can see the values for the sector you are currently in under the current position heading at the upper left side of the navigation console. Likewise, sector coordinates for the selected nav point are also displayed under the destination position heading on the upper right side of the navigation console. Sector borders are displayed on the nav map with white frames, and you can travel to a different sector the same way you can jump to a new location within a sector. To do this, you need to zoom out to view the sectors in the area using either the zoom out button on the right side of the console or by scrolling the mouse wheel down. The navigation system will always auto-center the nav map for you when you zoom out. Zoom out on the nav map now so that more local sectors are displayed. Notice that as you zoom out, more sectors come into view, as well as other objects in those sectors. You can quickly zoom in on one of the nearby sectors by right mouse clicking inside its sector box. You can also scroll and zoom in on a nearby sector by simply holding the mouse pointer over the sector box and scrolling the mouse wheel up. Try this now by zooming in on the sector that is up 1 and right 1 of the current sector you are in. The coordinates for the sector to zoom in on are SX3501, SY0, and SZ-1799. To help guide you, the local in-sector coordinates and sector coordinates for the location you are pointing to on the map are displayed on the lower left side of the navigation console. If you zoom in on the wrong sector, just zoom out and try again. Good. You can also scroll from sector to sector by clicking on the up, down, left, or right buttons at the edges of the nav map. These directional buttons also work at any zoom level. Use any of the available nav map movement control options to return to sector SX3500, SY0, and SZ-1800. In addition to zooming in on a sector with the right-click option, you can also plot a nav point directly to an object by right-clicking on its map icon. Test the right-click object selection option now by right-clicking on the asteroid field icon in sector SX3500, SY0, and SZ-1800. Good. Be careful not to engage the jump drive immediately after plotting jump points directly to planets, asteroids, or moons, as that can result in colliding with them. If you need to jump close to one of those objects, plot the jump point to it by right-clicking on its icon, then move the jump point to one side or the other by left-clicking on an alternate location near it. It will take some practice with jump drive navigation to safely arrive close to objects, so it's a good idea to invest the time to learn how to consistently plot close proximity jump points as you build your navigation skill set. Plotting safe and precise jump points quickly under pressure will become important as you travel to more dangerous regions of space. There are several different types of objects that the navigation sensor system displays icons and information for. Jump gates provide shortcuts to other regions of space and are displayed on the map with purple icons. Gate destinations are displayed at the bottom of the map when you hold the mouse pointer over their icons. Planet icons will include a name and economy type value, which lets you know what items may be in high demand or high supply for the area. It's important to use this information to help formulate optimal trade routes and get an idea of what to expect as you travel. Asteroids will appear as rock clusters, while station hangars will be gray in color. On the left side of the console menu under the Waypoints heading is the Autopilot option. The Autopilot will fly your ship to the selected nav point. If the location is in sector, the Autopilot will fly at regular speed. If the location is in a different sector, it will automatically plot multiple jump points to reach the selected destination. Below the Autopilot button is the Ping option, which marks your current position on the nav map with the green box. In multiplayer, clicking on Ping will allow other players to see the marker on their nav map as well, if they are in the same sector. You can also broadcast your position to players in other sectors with a text message using the Transpose button on the lower right corner of the navigation console. Below the Ping button is the Map Log button. Directly below the Map Log button is the Add to Log button, which will store the currently selected nav point in the map log. Click on the Map Log button to display the log now. You can save important locations in your map log and enter a description for each log entry to help you remember the locations you save. The sector coordinates as well as the local coordinates are stored for future reference. If the stored location is within nav range, its location will appear on the nav map with blue brackets, along with its corresponding number. Simply left-click on a listed location in this menu to plot a nav point to the location it contains. You can also optionally right-click on a location to remove it from the map log. Click on the nav map button to return to the map mode now. Below the Add to Log option is the Set Lock button, which will set the nav point to your current location. With this option, you can quickly lock in coordinates for the location you are at, so you can store them in the map log. These log options are useful tools to help you keep track of important locations, such as hidden objects, trade hotspots, or to simply store notes linked to coordinates in the game. Below the Set Lock button are options for setting your own sequential waypoints. Add New will add a waypoint. Set Nav will set the nav marker to each waypoint in order, and Delete will delete the last waypoint in the group. You can optionally right-click on the Delete button to clear all waypoints. The Local Points menu on the left side of the console display also provides a way to select jump points to specific locations in the sector. If the location is a planet, the computer will plot a jump point in the direction of the planet, but far enough away to avoid colliding with it or burning up in the atmosphere upon arrival. For most other object types, the system will plot a jump point much closer. It is recommended that you use these menu options until you're able to manually plot safe jump points near objects in space. On the right side of the navigation console are the map control options. Zoom in and zoom out can be used as alternatives to the mouse wheel for increasing or decreasing the level of sector zoom. As mentioned earlier, the rear view button lets you view the nav map from behind, allowing you to gauge the elevation of objects in range. The slide mode option lets you pan the map around using the mouse pointer. Click on this option now to see how this works. Click and hold the left mouse button on the map to move it around with a pointer. Notice that you can pan to other sectors in the area and view any detectable objects in those sectors. Click on the 2D flip mode button to return to the default map mode when you are finished testing the slide mode. A 3D mode is also available, which will allow you to rotate the map and view details in a more three-dimensional way. This can be useful to gauge elevation, distance, and direction. The 3D mode will also let you plot in-sector XYZ coordinates in open space for each individual axis. Click on the 3D mode button now to enable this option. Once activated, you can click and hold the right mouse button on the nav map to pan it around. By default, you can also place the X position of the nav point by left-clicking. Click on the Y or Z buttons to set the other coordinate positions as desired. You can also optionally check the Auto XYZ button to have the navigation system automatically toggle through each coordinate selection mode as you set a position for each one. The 3D mode also supports mouse wheel and button zoom controls, so you can view the space around the centered sector. And you can click on the directional arrows at the edge of the map to change the centered sector. Click on the 2D flip mode button to return to the default map mode. If you need more precision for plotting navigation points or want improved legibility for the various text modes and icon proximity, click on the Enlarge Map button at the bottom of the Map Controls menu. This will double the map's size and remove various console graphics for a larger and more unobstructed view. Test this now by clicking on the Enlarge Map button. The mouse wheel and right-click sector zooming options work in this map mode as well. Click on the Reduce Map button to return to the default map size. Below Map Controls are the Map Displays options. The Text On button will activate text details on the nav map for objects in the area. When several objects are close together on the nav map, it can be difficult to read some of the text, so you can use the button in the middle to sort text details by category. You can also optionally enlarge the map for more spacing. At the bottom of the map mode options is the Quadrant button. This option will activate the Quadrant map mode, allowing you to view system information for the entire Evochron quadrant. Click on the Quadrant button now to enable this mode. In this mode, you can see all of the primary charted systems in Evochron. You can hold the mouse pointer over a system to view details about its economic status and territory control status. If you left-click on the map, the selected sector coordinates will be logged into the destination position sector fields. You can also right-click on a displayed system to load nav map details remotely and switch to the local nav map mode. When the Quadrant mode is enabled, two new buttons will appear under the Options menu at the bottom. The Territory button will let you view the current territory control conditions in a 500 by 500 sector grid pattern. The Economy button will let you view the economic conditions in a 500 by 500 sector grid pattern. At the bottom right corner of the navigation console is the current territory control level for the region you are in. That concludes this section on the navigation console. The next section will cover the build console. This training section will cover the build console. To open the build console, click on the build icon at the top of the helmet's heads-up display or press the default F2 key. Again, if you are using the mouse for flight control, you can temporarily suspend flight control to click on HUD menu options by holding the Alt key down. Open the build console now. The build console lets you construct station modules, city modules, and deployable items. For station modules and city modules, a build constructor must be installed in an equipment slot on your ship. For deployable objects, a deploy constructor must be installed in an equipment slot. Station and city modules are considered long-term structures. When you build them, they remain in the game's universe. Deployable objects are considered short-term structures and are generally only built for temporary purposes. Each structure type requires a certain quantity of metal ore to be loaded in your ship's cargo bay before you can construct it. To view the build conditions for a module, simply hold the mouse pointer over its button in the console menu on the right side. The build location and required metal ore are displayed in green near the top of the console. A placement indicator will also be displayed out ahead of your ship, showing where the structure will be constructed. Observe the ore requirements and placement indicator now by highlighting a few of the options in the build modules list. If the module can be built at the current highlighted location, the placement indicator will appear either yellow or green. The indicator will also have the module's shape. If the highlighted location is not compatible for building, it will appear red. Green indicates an ideal build location. Most modules often perform best when built close together, so their indicators will generally display yellow in open space until they are near a connecting point with another module. You can still build these modules in open space, but may want to connect them together for optimal space management around shield and power modules, so you can fit more modules in range for a more efficient design. Space station power and command modules will generally display green, even if no other modules are nearby, since they don't have energy or functional dependencies with any other modules. If the build point is obstructed or unavailable due to incompatible environmental factors, the location indicator will display red and you won't be able to build there. If you are carrying sufficient metal ore to build the highlighted module, click on the structure's button to begin constructing it. The construction process will take several seconds and involves energy beams that pan back and forth to put the structure together on a molecular level using the metal ore from your cargo bay. Once the build process is finished, the structure will be activated and its lights will come on if a power module is close enough to supply it with energy. Likewise, if a shield module is close enough, the structure will also be protected by shield arrays. Power modules and shield modules generally need to be within 500 build units of measurement in order for them to operate with other nearby modules. "25 units of metal ore have been loaded into your ship's cargo bay. Go ahead and build a power module ahead of your ship using this metal ore by clicking on the Power Supply button in the list of build modules. If an error occurs, correct the problem stated in the message log and try again. The module will gradually phase into a solid object as it is constructed. Since this is a power supply module, you'll also see its lights activate once the build process is complete. City building modules have many of the same design principles as space station modules. They use very similar designs, but include added structural elements for construction on the surface of planet terrain. The modules function much the same way as they do in open space, but their build location system, proximity factors, and certain functional elements do have differences. First, the build location system is based on angles rather than open space coordinates. Angles are used to accommodate the curvature of planet surfaces. City structures you build will be installed onto the terrain surface and will rotate along with the planet. So a city you build won't remain stationary. It will become part of the planet's normal rotation and encounter its day-night cycles as well as any varying weather conditions that may apply from time to time. City buildings don't have the same kind of optimal build point dependencies as space station modules do. As long as you build them close enough, they'll be connected together for power and shield benefits. Cities do have the drawback of being restricted to a fairly limited 2D range of vertical placement relative to the planet, while space station modules can be built using diverse vertical positions. But cities also have the benefits of added protection from atmospheres and shifting location due to planet rotation, requiring any attacking force to slow their advance for low-speed descents and careful jump point placement, which gives any defensive force more potential time to respond and protect. So each type of structure can have unique attributes. The modules themselves also have some significant differences. Weapon modules are one example. While space station weapon modules use a 2-turret setup to protect in most directions, city weapon modules use an elevated tower with a single turret on top to protect around and above their locations. Command modules are also different. For space station command modules, the structure is very large and requires a high quantity of metal ore to build. It is also a more enclosed structure with 5 entrances around the center docking area. Only one of these can be built in each sector, so their build cap is more limited than for cities. City command modules are smaller and require less metal ore to construct. They are a more open, elevated platform design that can be approached from above using just about any angle. Players can build a few of these on each planet. However, they do not have the capacity for storage, so only shipyard, engineering lab, and weapon lab options are available in these modules. City command modules are also subject to the faction of the space station command module in the sector. Deployable modules are temporary structures designed to provide short-term options and benefits. A station hangar deployable module lets the player save their progress out in open space without requiring them to be docked at a full build module station hangar, bypassing the fuel penalty associated with saving in open space. The hangar station will provide the resources needed to engage the ship's cryo function. A repair station lets a ship repair its hull and subsystem damage quickly and without the need for a repair equipment device, repair beam, or to pay for repairs. A sensor station provides a remote way to scan a large region of sector space. This can be useful for locating other ships, containers, or certain other objects. They must be placed within plus or minus 50 km of a sector's central location. All deployable modules must be built in open space. A fuel station can harvest particles from a nearby star or nebula cloud and convert them into fuel for your ship. A shield array can protect a small section of space from weapon fire, which can be helpful when threats are nearby and you're trying to retrieve or mine something. A mining probe can automatically mine material from asteroids and planets. They can allow you to complete other objectives while they work to mine. Once the mining probe reaches capacity, it delivers the material it retrieved into cargo containers near the deployed location where you can later pick them up. The jump caster lets you travel very long distances to a specified point in space, up to 1,000 sectors away. The jump caster is linked to your ship's navigation system, so you simply select the destination position you want to travel to in the navigation console first. Then deploy the jump caster in the build console to construct it. Flying through the center of the jump caster will then take you to the selected destination. Deploy modules can be destroyed by flying close to them and clicking on the scuttle option that appears on the HUD. Build modules can only be destroyed by weapon fire. In addition to the line of sight indicator, the build console also offers an overhead view option that displays the local build area from above. Click on the overhead view button now to engage this mode. With the overhead view active, the local build area is displayed from above and includes a grid to indicate selectable placement options. In space, the offsets applied to the grid will account for X, Y, and Z coordinates, so you'll be able to quickly gauge the available spacing and placement pattern for any given area. On planet terrain, the system will switch to angles and the grid will align itself with the surface to provide a basic elevation and spacing indicator. To select a build point in this mode, left mouse click on a location within the grid. Go ahead and do this now. Now that a build point has been locked in, you can highlight the various module options on the right to gauge size and spacing. If the indicator is green, you can go ahead and build at the selected location. If not, you'll need to unlock the build point to move it to another location. Go ahead and unlock the build point now. Good. Remember that you can switch back to the default line of sight view mode by clicking on the cockpit view button. Go ahead and do this now. That concludes this training section on the build console. The next section will cover the inventory console. This training section will cover the inventory console. To open the inventory console, click on the inventory icon at the top of the heads-up display, or press the default F3 key. Again, if you are using the mouse for flight control, you can temporarily suspend flight control to click on HUD menu options by holding the Alt key down. Open the inventory console now. The inventory console lets you manage the items on your ship, repair and refuel your ship, manage crew, view system and event information, buy and sell items, and review available contracts. The docked options menu in the upper left corner of the console provides the option to enter the station for shelter and to free up space in the docking hangar for other ships. Entering the station also gives you access to the engineering lab, weapon lab, shipyard, and storage hangar. To return to space, simply click on the Launch Ship button that will appear where the Enter Station button is now. If your ship has sustained any damage, the total repair cost will appear here. If you have enough credits, you can click on this button to pay the fee and repair your ship. This button opens another menu that lets you refuel your ship. Go ahead and click on it now. The refueling menu will open, giving you several options. You can enter a specific amount of fuel or select a fixed quantity. The cost for each unit of fuel is displayed for each option. You can also click on the Fill Fuel Tank button if you want to simply fill your ship's fuel tank to its maximum capacity. Click on the Close Fuel Entry button now to close the menu. The license option will let you pay the fee indicated for a small discount on a station's inventory. Choose this option carefully, as it can impact trade efficiency and profit. You'll also likely want to avoid buying a license at a station that is in a disputed region where it is at greater risk of being destroyed. Click on the Crew Management button now. This menu lets you manage crew members, which can enhance the capabilities of your ship and provide information. Crew members can only be hired for civilian ships, and you will be required to pay them a repeating wage. You are in control of their pay, but if you pay them too little, you will lose their loyalty and they may leave the ship next time you dock. Click on the Close Crew Management Console button now to return to the main inventory console. Click on the News Information button now. At the top of the console are details on the local structures in the sector. Specific module type data is displayed to the right. The current economy rating and its faction control is displayed next, followed by local territory control information. Your current affiliation is displayed next, followed by local market commodity price details. Percentages are displayed after each commodity price to indicate where the current price is at relative to its regular price. High supply can result in a reduced price below 100%, while high demand can result in a higher price above 100%. The lower right side of the console shows your current statistics. The Quest menu button lets you select and activate single-player quests, while the View Station Details button displays the items and locations of anything you've stored in station hangars. Click on the System Information button now. This option displays statistics and economy class information about the system you are currently in. The bottom part of the console provides information about the nearest planet, including sector location, terrain type, water content, cloud cover, atmosphere type, and other details. This can be useful information if you are approaching a planet you haven't visited before. The Regional News option will provide information on changes in commodity pricing and other events throughout the Evochron quadrant, which can help guide you in making decisions on trade, finding equipment, and combat. Click on the Close News Information button to return to the main inventory console. Now click on the Flight Event Log button. This menu provides information on events that are recorded as you complete various tasks and objectives. Events are categorized so you can sort through them by type. They are stored chronologically and also include the sector location. You can optionally click on an entry to transfer it to the message log. Click on the Close Flight Event Log button now to return to the main inventory console. When you are docked at a station, you can buy and sell items by simply clicking on them. Equipment items are displayed in yellow, commodities are displayed in purple, and weapons are displayed in green. When the Items for Sale option is highlighted, you will see a list of the available items this station has to offer. Use the scroll bar on the left side of the list to pan through the complete list of available items. You can also use the mouse wheel to scroll through the items when the mouse pointer is over the list. When you hold the mouse pointer over an item in the list, a description of it will appear at the top of the console. Items that are installed or loaded onto your ship are displayed on the right side of the console. The amount of fuel and credits you have are displayed at the top, followed by installed equipment, contents of the cargo bay, and weapons. Installed and loaded items use the same color coding as the Items for Sale list, so you can quickly gauge which ones are compatible with the different installation options of your ship. To buy an item, simply click on the one you want from the Items for Sale section. If your ship can store or load the item you want, it will be loaded, and the cost deducted from your account. Each item will be automatically routed to the default compatible installation option. Commodities will be loaded into your ship's cargo bay, while equipment and weapons will be installed onto compatible hardpoints. Go ahead and buy the first commodity item for sale, the electronics, by left-clicking on it from the Items for Sale list. Notice that your cargo bay now has the item listed, and the amount has been deducted from your account. Right-clicking on an item provides alternate functions for buying, selling, and installation. To load weapons and equipment into your cargo bay instead of installing them on your ship, right-mouse click on the items you want instead of left-clicking on them. This way, you can use your cargo bay as a storage point for items other than commodities. You can later install desired items in your cargo bay onto your ship by right-clicking on them from your cargo bay list. However, you must be docked at a station, city, or carrier to install items from your cargo bay onto your ship. Likewise, you can transfer installed items on your ship to your cargo bay by right-clicking on them instead of left-clicking on them. To sell and unload an item, simply click on it from one of the sections on the right side of the console showing the loaded items on your ship. The selling value will be added to your account. If you only want to buy or sell one unit of a commodity at a time, simply right-click on the listed commodity. Try this now by right-clicking on the electronics you purchased earlier that are now listed in the cargo bay section of the console. By default, the game will prompt you to double-click for confirmation when selling items. Notice that only one unit of the commodity was sold, allowing you to keep the rest. To consolidate commodity cargo, use the Alt key with either the left or right mouse button. Alt left click to combine matching commodities up to the limit of 25 per cargo bay. Alt right click to transfer one unit at a time. Both the equipment list and cargo bay list provide scroll bars in case you have more installed items than the 5 displayed slots can indicate. The cargo bay list also has a jettison button on the right side, which lets you quickly empty your cargo bay. You can also optionally discard cargo in individual bays by double-clicking on an item while in open space. Click on Available Contracts now to continue with the next training stage. This menu displays the contracts available to you. The objectives and pay are generally unique to your reputation and conditions in the area. You can scroll through the available contracts by clicking on the Previous and Next buttons, or click on the Accept button to take a contract. At times, emergency distress calls might be available and will often pay more, but will be time limited. In disputed territory, combat contracts can be offered that require you to engage and destroy hostile forces. There are also contracts for things like mining, escorting, item delivery, item recovery, deployment, solar cell cleaning, ship rescue, scanning, and racing. Once you accept a contract, the required waypoint will be displayed on the nav map, HUD, and 3D radar. The navigation system will also set a nav point to the waypoint automatically. Simply fly to the waypoint to begin completing the objective. If you succeed, the payment will be applied to your account and credit applied to your contract record immediately. That concludes this training section on the inventory console. The next section will cover the trade console. This training section will cover the trade console. To open the trade console, click on the trade icon at the top section of the heads-up display, or press the default F4 key. Again, if you are using the mouse for flight control, you can temporarily suspend flight control to click on HUD menu options by holding the Alt key down. The trade console will be opened automatically for you. This console lets you arrange item and credit trades with other ships. Commodities and other items in your cargo bay aren't part of your ship, so they can be exchanged with other ships in flight. If the other pilot wants to sell something or offer credits to you, their offer will appear on the right side of the console screen under Items Being Offered. The fair market value for the system you are in will be displayed after the item description. If the pilot of the other ship agrees to the terms, the credits and items will be exchanged when you click on the Submit button. In multiplayer, both pilots must click on Submit for the deal to be finalized. You can send multiple trade requests as desired to negotiate. Practice using the trade console now by clicking on the commodity displayed in the cargo bay list to offer it to the other ship. Notice that the other pilot will return with an offer to pay for the commodity. Go ahead and accept the offer and click on the Submit button. The item was transferred to the other ship, and the amount of credits was transferred to your account. While you won't usually get the full market value of an item when trading this way, it is a quick way to sell off items you may not want, or acquire items for a slightly reduced price. In single player, the trade console also includes options to hire a ship to join your fleet. Hiring a ship to join your fleet can be useful in combat situations, when you may need additional reinforcements, or for escort protection when transporting items in hostile space. The Request Information option can provide you with helpful tips from other pilots in the area. They may give you suggestions, warnings, or just send you comments. On occasion, they may also be willing to provide you with secrets they've discovered, build tips for the engineering lab, or contraband for a price. If they demand a fee for information, you'll be given the option to pay it or not. In multiplayer, the trade console offers additional options. Pilots can exchange small 30-unit fuel pods, as well as challenge each other to races. A turret gunner option is also available, allowing the connecting player to control a 360-degree gun turret on another player's spacecraft. A player can also hire another player to complete an objective for them. That concludes this training section on the trade console. The next section will cover mining asteroids. This training section will cover mining asteroids. The first equipment item you'll need to have installed on your ship is a mining tractor beam. The mining beam will let you retrieve particles from asteroids, planets, moons, nebula clouds, and stars, as well as being able to tractor other items to your cargo bay and perform cleaning operations. The focus of this training section will be on mining asteroids, but the mining tractor beam is a multi-purpose tool that can be used in a variety of applications. Your ship is now near an asteroid cluster containing valuable material you can recover to sell. build with, or design weapons and equipment. For this training section, a target scanner has been added to your ship's equipment list. A target scanner can be used to detect the contents of an asteroid, which can help narrow down the search for a particular material you may be looking for. To get started, fly close to one of the nearby asteroids and target it using the default numpad 1 key for targeting the nearest asteroid, or the default numpad 3 key for targeting an asteroid in the gun sight. Good. Now fly to within 500 meters of the targeted asteroid and make sure it is centered in the gun sight. Notice that the asteroid's mineable contents are displayed on the target status display in the scanner section. The higher the percentage of a material, the greater the chance you will recover a unit of that material. This way, you can search for and locate an asteroid with more of the material you want before you mine it. To begin mining, you can press and hold the default B key or press the default Alt-B key combination to lock the tractor beam on. Go ahead and lock the tractor beam on. The mining beam will retrieve particles from the asteroid when it is in range. You will see sparks and smoke near the mining contact point when the beam is actively cutting into the rock. If you do not see these effects, then you aren't close enough to the asteroid to mine it. As particles are retrieved, they are combined together into individual units. Units are the standard measure of commodities, and each cargo bay on your ship will automatically sort material into matching types. Each unit of a material is a specific shape and size, and they are only compatible with each other within each individual cargo bay. So once a cargo bay contains at least one unit of a material, any additional units of that material will automatically be routed to that cargo bay first. Once a cargo bay is full with 25 units, the system will route additional units to the next available cargo bay. Any material you don't have room for will be discarded. If you run out of cargo space for a material you want, you can optionally double-click on a cargo bay in the inventory console to discard its contents and make room for something else. Discarding cargo destroys it. You can also click on the jettison button next to the cargo bay list to empty your ship's entire cargo bay, which leaves the cargo in containers behind your spacecraft. Continue mining this asteroid. Again, if you do not see sparks and smoke coming from the asteroid, then you aren't close enough to mine material from it. If you plan on doing a significant amount of mining, you'll likely want to include at least 3 cargo bays or more in your ship's design. This way, you can mine a variety of materials and/or carry enough to make mining runs more profitable and efficient. Mining with only 1 or 2 cargo bays can restrict what you are able to load and transport, requiring more frequent trips, which uses more fuel and reduces profitability. For improved mining efficiency, you can also pan the beam around the inside of the asteroid. Doing so allows the beam to cover more material inside the asteroid and recover particles faster. Try this now by yawing and pitching your ship slightly to pan the beam around in a circular pattern. Good. Notice that the rate of particle recovery increases substantially when mining this way. A science crew member can also significantly increase mining efficiency. There are also specialized mining beams that are designed to recover only one type of particle. On rare occasion, you may also encounter some asteroid clusters that mostly contain only one type of material, sometimes very valuable. Disengage the mining beam now by pressing the default B key. That concludes this training section on mining asteroids. The next section will cover combat weapon systems. This training section will cover combat weapon systems. We'll get started by reviewing combat display systems and weapon controls. Later on, there will be practice sessions available that will let you apply the information provided in training by engaging in combat with several drone spacecraft. First, we'll review combat-related HUD and cockpit information. The center of the HUD is your gun sight. The outer rim of the gun sight indicates the limit of where you can obtain a missile lock and have your primary weapons automatically aim at a target. The rim also provides a directional pointer to guide you to the location of the currently selected target. Primary weapons use the multi-directional tracking system, or MDTS, to automatically lead a target based on its speed, distance, and direction. The target must be in range and within the outer rim of the gun sight for the weapons to automatically aim at a target. The farther away a target is, the more time it will have to evade the gunfire. If you want to aim manually, you can press the default L key to turn the MDTS off. Observe this now by turning the MDTS off and on again. Notice that the MDTS indicator at the top of the HUD displays off when the system is disabled, and displays ready when enabled. When a target is in range and within the outer rim of the gun sight, the MDTS indicator will display locked to indicate that your ship's weapons are locked on the target and are tracking its movements. A missile lock is obtained by keeping a target ship inside the same outer rim of the gun sight for a certain period of time. The range and time it takes to obtain a lock will depend on which secondary weapon is being used. Some secondary weapon types, such as disruptors, don't require a missile lock and just fly in a straight line. You can toggle between secondary weapons in flight by pressing the default semicolon and apostrophe keys. Above the gun sight in HUD Mode 2 is the heat signature indicator, which displays the level of heat being emitted from your spacecraft. When you maneuver or change speed, the thermal energy from your ship's engines and thrusters produces a heat signature that missiles can lock onto and track you with. An incoming missile's lock will be stronger if your ship is generating more heat, making countermeasures less effective. Use this indicator to monitor the status of your ship's heat profile, and as incoming missiles approach, reduce the level of heat and use countermeasures as needed to evade. To the left of the MDTS and heat signature indicators is the current weapon firing mode indicator. When the indicator reads all, both particle cannons and beam cannons will fire at the same time when using the primary weapon key or button. When it reads part, only particle cannons will fire, and when it reads beam, only beam cannons will fire. Toggle through the 3 available firing modes now using the default N key. You can also fire your ship's primary weapons to test each mode if you want to. Particle cannons fire projectiles at high speed and are usually moderately effective against shields and most effective against hull armor. Each type of particle cannon can have unique range, yield, and firing rate attributes. Some particle cannons are also optimized to deplete shields, drain energy, or inflict kinetic effects on a target. So review the specifications of each cannon you install so you understand how to best use it. Beam cannons are the other type of primary weapon. They are generally a shield depletion weapon, and higher class models that use more power are more effective. You can selectively fire each type of weapon individually or simultaneously by changing the firing mode as described earlier. There are also optional key controls for firing each weapon type individually. F5 for particle cannons and F6 for beam cannons. As with other key and button controls, they can also be remapped in the options menu. The WPN readout on your ship's status display indicates the weapon system power level. The blue bar will decrease in size as you fire your primary weapons. Once the bar reaches the middle, your weapon system will be out of power and will need to recharge. Observe this in action now by firing your primary weapons until the bar indicates a low power level. The default keyboard control for primary weapons is the left control key. Good. Notice that a red energy light flashes on your HUD to bring the low power level to your attention. Below the weapon power level readout, the green bar next to the letters HUL indicates the status of your ship's hull. It will decrease in size as your ship sustains hull damage. The level of armor your ship has and its hull composition is determined by design parameters you select when building your spacecraft in the shipyard. One of the most important aspects of handling your ship in combat is shield management. Your shield system projects a defensive field of energy in 4 directions. Each direction is referred to as an array. If one or more arrays becomes weak, enemy gunfire can hit the hull of your ship directly, causing damage. As mentioned earlier, the condition of each array is indicated on the shield readout of your ship's status display. Notice the green bars, one for each direction with your ship in the middle. Watch as the front shield array is dropped to critical. The green bar changes color to red and decreases in size. As it recharges, the color will change to yellow, then green again. Your goal is to avoid letting any array reach critical. To do that, you can transfer power from the other arrays. Practice that now. The front shield array will again be dropped to critical. When that happens, use the Augment Front Shield key, default numpad 8, to transfer power from the left, right, and rear arrays to the front array. Continue transferring power to the front array until its indicator is green. Good. In addition to transferring power to a specific array, you can also balance power between all 4, using the default numpad 5 key. Anytime you transfer power between the arrays, you'll lose a little energy in the process, but the added protection for a critical array is often worth it. Also remember that you can improve the recharge rate of all shield arrays by transferring power to your shield system. We'll cover energy management next. First, if your ship is moving at all, set your speed to 0 and remain stationary for these next few stages. You can adjust the balance of energy between your ship's weapon and shield systems by using the default left bracket and right bracket keys. Increasing power to a system will improve its recharge rate and effectiveness, providing more resistance for shields or more shots for primary weapons. The current energy setting is shown next to the letters PWR. The setting will range from a value of -5 to +5. Managing power between these systems will become very important as you start upgrading your weapons and shield systems. Practice changing the energy setting value between the two limits using the default left bracket and right bracket keys. For this next stage, make sure your spacecraft is stationary and do not use weapons. A hostile drone ship has been placed in range of your position and will be used to show different tracking options. Do not fire on this drone spacecraft at this time. The lower right cockpit display provides information on the target you are currently tracking. If you have a target scanner installed and the targeted spacecraft is within the device's range, you can view certain design specifications about the ship. You can also retrieve the damage status of the ship's subsystems by pressing the default U key to toggle through the available options. The ship's ID, faction affiliation, range, and threat level are also displayed. The orientation indicator on the right side of the display will change color as the target sustains damage. Gray is minimal damage, yellow is moderate damage, and red is critical damage. Below the orientation display is the target's hull damage indicator. The HUD will display a circular indicator directly on top of the target spacecraft when it is in your view. The indicator will be color-coded to match the threat level of the target and provides the spacecraft's range, hull damage, shield, and velocity status. When the target is in weapon range, a lead indicator will also appear and point in the direction the ship is traveling relative to your course and direction. You can either aim manually at the lead indicator with the MDTS off, or let the computer aim at the lead indicator with the MDTS on. To target a ship, simply use the mouse pointer to click on it when it's in your visual range. You can toggle between ships in the area with the default T key, or use the default R key to target the closest ship. Alt-T will toggle between hostile ships in the area, while Alt-R will target the nearest hostile ship. You can also target a ship in your gun sight with the default Y key. Another drone will be placed in the area. Practice targeting each of the nearby hostile ships using any of the available options. Good. That concludes this section on combat weapon systems. The next section will cover basic combat maneuvers and tactics. This training section will cover basic combat maneuvers and tactics. More advanced tactics and options are available, and you'll generally learn them as you build your skill set within the game. But this training section will provide you with the basics you need to know to get started handling your ship in combat within the zero-gravity vacuum environment of space. Unlike the atmospheric environment of combat aircraft in the past, open space is a fully 3D environment without the obstacle of terrain or limitation of high altitude to confine the vertical range of movement. So as a space combat pilot, you are free to utilize the full range of directions and diverse range of velocities. Your primary focus should be on maintaining the correct velocities for the maneuvers you need to perform and executing those maneuvers to obtain the optimal attack position on your target. In space, there is no atmosphere to generate lift or drag, so any changes in your ship's course require using thrusters to modify. Different thruster systems can provide different performance results for those maneuvers. Your ship's mass will also have a significant impact on how fast you can perform maneuvers, and some may not work very well or at all for certain classes of ships. So make sure to consider these factors when planning your combat strategies. Here are a few important points to keep in mind during combat. Speed is critical. Always keep moving. Try to avoid making sharp turns with the IDS on, which risks slowing you down to speeds that make you an easier target. In active combat, you will rarely want to allow your speed to drop below 1000. Maintaining high speed with moderate rate turns for wide arcs is important. Remember to use the afterburner when needed to maintain high speed. You'll also want to avoid flying too fast, which can result in ineffective high-speed passes that leave little time to inflict damage on a target. You'll need to learn how to balance speed and approach angles for optimal defensive and offensive effectiveness. This training section will introduce you to some of the basic maneuvering principles for space combat. One important situation awareness principle to keep in mind is watching your radar. The 3D radar is centered in the cockpit right below the gun sight for a reason. Next to the information projected on the HUD, the 3D radar is generally the second most important display to watch. It's important to get in the habit of checking the radar every few seconds to continually monitor the direction of the threats around you. Your current target will be highlighted with brackets on this display, so if you lose them visually, you can keep track of their direction on the radar to plot your next move accordingly. In combat, it's generally best to leave your HUD in Mode 2, which provides important status information around the gun sight, as explained in earlier training stages. With Mode 2 active, you generally won't have to look away from the gun sight in the heat of battle to view important information on your ship's velocity, course, shield array status, weapon power, and hull damage status. Verify the HUD is in Mode 2 now. First, we'll review some basic defensive options and tactics. As explained in the Combat Weapon Systems section, one of the most important elements of surviving space combat engagements is managing your shield arrays. You should already be familiar with augmenting power to each individual array at this point. If not, you may want to go back and review that training section. Keeping your shields charged and supplied with energy is important in preventing direct hull impacts from enemy gunfire and missiles. Also important is keeping your ship's velocity high enough to avoid becoming an easy target for your enemy's MDTS-locked gunfire and missiles, but not so high that you wind up just making high-speed jousting passes by your enemy with little time to inflict damage. To get started, set your IDS scale value to X2 to provide a higher velocity set limit for practicing some defensive combat maneuvers. Once the IDS scale is set to that level, increase your ship's velocity to the new maximum speed available and fly in a straight line at heading 0, pitch 0. The training section will continue once you have lined up in that direction and have reached the maximum X2 set velocity. Now we will practice a turn to avoid losing too much speed and/or not turning quickly enough. This will require you to balance your turn rate between too sharp and too shallow. Your objective is to turn exactly left or right at a rate that allows your forward FVL speed to remain above at least 1000, but you'll also need to complete the turn in less than 10 seconds. If you start turning too quickly, you can use the afterburner to bring your speed back up. If you fail this turn, this stage will repeat until you succeed. Turn exactly left or right to a heading of 180 and pitch 0 now, and keep your speed above 1000. To get started, set your IDS scale value to X2 to provide a higher velocity set limit for practicing some defensive combat maneuvers. Once the IDS scale is set to that level, increase your ship's velocity to the new maximum speed available and fly in a straight line at heading 0, pitch 0. The training section will continue once you have lined up in that direction and have reached the maximum X2 set velocity. Now we will practice a turn to avoid losing too much speed and/or not turning quickly enough. This will require you to balance your turn rate between too sharp and too shallow. Your objective is to turn exactly left or right at a rate that allows your forward FVL speed to remain above at least 1000, but you'll also need to complete the turn in less than 10 seconds. If you start turning too quickly, you can use the afterburner to bring your speed back up. If you fail this turn, this stage will repeat until you succeed. Turn exactly left or right to a heading of 180 and pitch 0 now, and keep your speed above 1000. To get started, set your IDS scale value to X2 to provide a higher velocity set limit for practicing some defensive combat maneuvers. Once the IDS scale is set to that level, increase your ship's velocity to the new maximum speed available and fly in a straight line at heading 0. Now we will practice a turn to avoid losing too much speed and/or turn exactly left or right to a heading of 180 and pitch 0 now, and keep your speed above 1000. To get started, set your IDS scale value to x2 to provide a higher velocity set limit. Now we will practice a turn to avoid losing too much speed and/or not turning quickly enough. This will require you to balance your turn rate between too sharp and too shallow. Your objective is to turn exactly left or right to a heading of 180 and pitch 0 now, and keep your speed above 1000. To get started, set your IDS scale value to x2 to provide a higher velocity set limit for practicing some defensive combat maneuvers. Once the IDS scale is set to that, now we will practice a turn. Turn exactly left or right to a heading of 180 and pitch 0 now, and keep your speed above 1000. Good. The turn you just performed is one way to avoid letting your speed drop too much while not flying so fast that a moderate turn is impractical. With practice, you'll learn how to perform various turns and loops at different velocities and angles to avoid losing too much speed or taking too long to change direction. Return to heading 0 and pitch 0 with your speed at x2 IDS maximum. Another maneuver we will practice is a snap 180. Unlike the previous turn, this maneuver involves disengaging the IDS and then turning around as fast as possible to face a threat behind you. This allows you to fly backwards at your current velocity, giving you the opportunity to fire back at a target that is chasing you. For this stage, a hostile ship will be placed behind you, and your objective is to turn off the IDS, then turn around to face the target in your gun sight before the 5-second timer is up. You can turn any way you like, but be careful not to overshoot aligning the target in your gun sight. As soon as the timer starts, disengage the IDS and turn around to put the target behind you in your gun sight. Go. Nicely done. Next, we'll review a few evasive maneuver options that can help avoid incoming gunfire or missiles. The first will be a basic corkscrew maneuver, which can help avoid gunfire from an opponent at longer ranges. The idea is to spin your ship repeatedly with roll and pitch only while continuing to fly in a consistent direction. First, engage the IDS if you haven't already done so, then bring your speed back up to the x2 IDS maximum and fly in a straight line at any heading. At these speeds, you can apply a high level of rotational changes to your ship without significantly impacting your drift momentum. To practice a corkscrew maneuver, you will simply apply maximum roll and pitch, but do not apply any yaw. Go ahead and apply maximum roll either left or right, as well as maximum pitch either up or down, and maintain the spin for at least 5 seconds. Good. While performing a spin maneuver like this, an opponent's MDTS will have a harder time tracking your movements, if your distance is great enough and if your course changes slightly as your ship rotates. It's also generally better to perform a spin when your course is near perpendicular to your opponent's. You can augment either roll or pitch to change your directional pattern as needed for more effective evasion, depending on range and your ship's agility. At closer ranges, where evasive maneuvers will be less effective, you may want to simply boost power to shields and arc around your opponent to evade, or face them for a quick flyby. Next, we'll practice minimizing your ship's heat signature for maximum countermeasure effectiveness, and review some important principles. When dealing with inbound missiles, an important objective to keep in mind is a low heat signature. When you maneuver your ship or fire weapons, an amount of heat is generated and added to your ship's overall heat signature. The heat signature your ship generates is used by heat-seeking weapons to maintain a lock and track you. Reducing your heat signature reduces the signal those weapons can use to track you. The higher your heat signature, the easier it is for an inbound missile to track you, and the less effective any countermeasures you launch will be. Countermeasures emit a strong heat signature in an effort to distract a missile into following them instead of you. The more countermeasures you launch, the more of a distraction effect they will have on a missile. Also, do not waste countermeasures when you are flying toward a missile that is ahead of you. If you are between the missile and a countermeasure, the missile will still be able to track you. Instead, only use countermeasures when a missile is behind you and closing in on your position. It will take some practice to become proficient with countermeasure timing and placement. To get started, bring your ship's heat signature to maximum using the afterburner, weapon fire, and/or engines and thrusters. Then center all controls and quickly turn off the IDS. Go ahead and bring your ship's heat signature up to maximum now. Now stop any afterburner, engine, or weapon fire and disengage the IDS. Notice how fast your ship's heat signature falls on the indicator above the gun sight. If you were launching countermeasures, their effectiveness would increase dramatically as your heat signature drops. So if you are being chased by a missile and there is room to drop your heat signature and launch countermeasures, you'll have a better chance of fooling the missile into chasing the CMs instead of you. If there isn't enough time to complete these steps due to close range and or low speed, then focus on launching countermeasures anyway for the best possible chance of escaping unharmed. Another option to avoid missile impacts is to try and shoot them down before they hit your ship. This is a fairly risky option and takes quite a bit of practice to master. You need to have enough range and speed to have sufficient time to face the missile and fire several rounds at it. If your speed is too low and or range is too close, you won't have enough time to inflict enough damage on the missile to cause it to explode, as it can take several direct shots to destroy a missile. A hostile drone will now be brought in and will fire a missile at you. Using what you've learned, practice avoiding getting hit by the inbound missile. If you want more practice, remember that you can press Alt-Enter to go back and repeat any previous training stage. The drone has been placed. Avoid the incoming missile. Always make sure not to allow yourself to get into situations that make you an easier missile target. Flying directly at your enemy makes you an easier missile target and also lets the missile close the distance faster, providing you with less time to use countermeasures and evade. Getting caught at low speed, especially in the middle of a pack of hostile ships, can result in a quick demise from missiles. Don't be afraid to use the fuel and time to keep your distance when needed to minimize your vulnerability to missiles. Inbound missiles can be intimidating at first, but with a few basic tactics, managing them can become much less of a concern. In summary, effective defensive techniques include monitoring your ship's shield arrays and being ready to augment energy to an array that is losing power. Try to keep your shield arrays in the green as much as possible. Perform maneuvers that are effectively quick, but not so sharp that you lose momentum and wind up becoming a slow-moving target that's easier to hit. Move fast when you need to evade, and try to never let your speed drop too low. Remember to turn the tables on an attacker with snap 180 turns when needed. Maintain longer ranges when required by performing fairly wide high-speed turns to give yourself more time to evade and or recharge. Drop your heat signature in inbound missile situations that call for it to allow your countermeasures to be more effective. Evade incoming gunfire at longer ranges by performing spin and turn maneuvers that make it harder for your opponent's MDTS to track your movement. Next, we'll review some basic offensive maneuvers and tactics. First, some important technical details and principles. Beam cannons fire laser energy that moves at the speed of light, so they only need to harmonize and point directly at the target to hit it. Harmonizing brings the two beams together to a point of impact on the target, resulting in maximum effective damage. Particle cannons fire projectiles at high speed. They must lead the target so that the shots will meet it at a point in the future. Because of the time and distance factors, the MDTS is not 100% effective for particle fire, since the target can change course by the time the shots reach the original projected intercept point. For situations where you want to aim manually at a target, you can turn off the MDTS with the default L key. Most of the time, though, you'll likely want to keep the MDTS engaged. Particle cannons include computerized accuracy control for projectile placement with or without the MDTS active. The system is designed to put the shots you fire directly at the point your gun sight or MDTS is aiming the moment you pull the trigger. The computer system includes auto-compensators that apply offset force factors to your shots to ensure that they will reach the indicated point regardless of how fast your ship is flying, what angle it's at, and of any outside factors that would otherwise affect their path. So whether you are in a planet atmosphere, near a high-gravity star, or in open space, when you pull the trigger, your weapon system will apply directional and physics offsets to your shots to ensure they reach the location your gun sight or MDTS is pointing to when you fire. This way, you can always aim directly at where you want to place your shots and let the computer do the work of sorting out any factors that may interfere with accuracy. So you do not need to worry about trying to manually compensate for drift vectors or environmental conditions. Simply point at where you want to aim and fire. The first tactic we will review is offset approaching a target. You should never fly directly at a target with guns blazing. Those who do will often discover just how easy they are to destroy by making such a rookie mistake. You should never approach a target directly, since that allows your opponent's MDTS to more easily maintain a predictable vector on you, making it easier for them to hit you with gunfire. Instead, you should always approach a target at an offset angle. Generally speaking, the wider the angle, the better. Too wide, however, and you may find yourself backing away from your target. You will want to keep your target approaching at an angle wide enough to avoid being a straight shot for their MDTS, but narrow enough that you still get within range to fire at them yourself. The speed you are flying at, as well as the speed your target is flying at, will be important factors in determining just how wide of an angle you need to approach at. You can implement an offset approach in multiple ways. You can fly toward your target at a wide angle and then disengage the IDS to continue drifting at that angle while you turn to face your target directly so you can fire weapons once it's in range. You can also fly toward your target at a wide angle and leave the IDS on, then use horizontal and/or vertical thrusters to adjust your drift while you continue approaching to line up for an attack. If the distance is great enough, you can also set your approach speed first, then turn off the IDS and set your drift vector using thruster controls before you reach an attack distance, keeping your target nicely lined up most of the time. The maneuver is not an exact science and can be adjusted dynamically for conditions. You may need to keep a target closer to the edge of the HUD, fly faster or slower, or apply more or less thruster adjustment to change drift direction. To practice this maneuver, a hostile drone will be placed out in front of your position. You will then need to set up an indirect approach vector so that you fly around the target at a distance of no less than 500 meters, but still within 1500 meters, which is within the range of several different particle weapons. Make sure to set your speed and approach angle correctly and adjust as needed if your course appears to be bringing you in too close to the target. This exercise will help illustrate how an offset approach can be done given the current conditions of the ship you are flying, the opponent's ship, and the different speeds you'll be approaching at. Adjustments will need to be made for different scenarios, weapon configurations, and spacecraft. Remember that you can repeat this objective as desired for more practice by using Alt-Enter to return to a previous stage. Line up at a heading of 0 and pitch 0, then adjust your velocity to around 1500. Begin your offset approach maneuver and remember to keep your distance above 500 meters, but still passing by the target at less than 1500 meters. Well done. When flying by a target, you want to make sure you apply the correct energy settings. It's a good idea to get in the habit of boosting energy to your weapon system to fully charge it before you begin an attack run. Then boost power to shields when you are not directly attacking with primary weapons to restore the arrays as may be needed. This way, you will maximize your attack capability while also maintaining your shields. Running out of energy for one or the other before a target is destroyed can result in your quick destruction. For this next stage, we will apply the offset approach technique with energy settings and weapon attacks. You will only use primary weapons for this stage, no missiles. On an initial pass, or if you circle around a target, you'll generally want to focus on bringing down your opponent's shields. This can be done with particle cannons or beam weapons, but to conserve energy and maximize the potential for inflicting shield damage, you may want to start with beam cannons first. Since beam weapons fire at the speed of light, you are guaranteed a hit if the target is in range and locked by the MDTS. And since beam weapons are most effective against shields, they can be the most effective way to reduce the defenses of a target in the early stages of a combat engagement. Line up at heading 0 and pitch 0 again. Also bring your speed to around 1500. The drone will then be brought in again and you can begin your offset approach. Once you are within weapon range, fire beam cannons to bring down the target's shields. Once the shields are critical, switch to particle cannons to destroy the target. It may take several passes or circular attack patterns. Avoid high-speed flybys that will give your opponent time to recharge their shields. Remember to adjust your energy setting as may be needed between weapons and shields. Engage the target. Reduce its shields to critical with beam weapons first, then destroy it with particle cannons. Good. As you may have noticed, there can be times when you wind up behind an escaping target, or you wind up being chased from behind. One of the best positions to achieve is the 6 o'clock on a target. You'll usually have the opportunity to approach a target from behind after a flyby, when you turn around to reacquire, or when they are focused on attacking a different target and you are approaching from a distance. Chase attacks can be difficult to set up and maintain, but are an important part of the attack strategies you'll need to be aware of, as it will often also be used against you. Getting in behind an enemy ship can be useful, but your opponent won't often let you remain there for long. If they are accelerating to try and get away from you, it will often be difficult to chase them down and effectively attack. They'll usually try to spin using a similar corkscrew maneuver that you learned earlier, and or accelerate with afterburner to avoid incoming gunfire, and to get far enough away to turn around and reacquire you. Enemy ships will often work together effectively in groups. One or more may try to bait you into chasing them so others in the group can get in behind you and attack. So watch for such attempts and try not to let yourself get into situations where you are surrounded. Try to pick off targets one at a time and work to split them up to achieve this objective. Next, we'll review more missile evasion tactics to build on what was introduced in the defensive section. First, fly in a straight direction and set your ship's speed to about 1500. The missile is now inbound. Launch countermeasures at the optimal time. If your speed has changed, set it back to around 1500 now and fly in a straight direction. Next, 3 missiles will be launched at you from behind. The missiles are now inbound. As you learn to control your ship and build your flying skill set over time, you'll likely develop your own style and preferred techniques. From wide circular arcs around a target to hold a fixed distance for gunfire attacks, to carefully timed V-shaped patterns for quick double passes. There are a number of more advanced techniques and options available in the open zero gravity environment of space. Some techniques work best with certain ships that have the right combination of agility and speed, so you'll also likely formulate a preferred ship configuration that best fits your flying style. Always keep practicing to learn the diverse range of available options and to fine-tune your abilities. Practice a few races to improve ship control for specific flight paths, and learn how to best use various weapons and defensive ship systems. As a combat pilot, you need to be able to constantly adapt to the changing conditions of the battle, and remain aware of where enemy ships are in the space around you, where they are moving, and what threat level they pose to you and any friendly ships that may be flying with you. Dynamic decision-making for changing combat conditions is the key to a pilot's success rate. For this last stage, several hostile drones will be placed in the area for you to practice with. Their weapon use will be limited, and your ship won't sustain damage, so you are free to take the time to practice. Try some of the principles taught in this training section, and also try some of your own ideas. Training will end once you've destroyed all of the drones. You will also be given 4 echelon missiles for this stage. The drones have been placed. Begin combat. have completed this training section. Good luck out there, pilot.